Namaste, good evening, friends, and welcome to the Bhagavad Gita study class. This is the continuation of the Vishwarupa Darshan Yoga, the vision of the divine form, or the yoga of the divine form. So, in this session, we will try to wrap up and complete this particular topic, and we will also try to understand finally how we go about actually practicing this particular form of yoga now that we have seen the various facets of this particular form. A quick summary. We touched upon different perspectives of the divine form. We started from the form perspective to reaching the formless. We touched upon the various systems. What is cosmos with a K, cosmos with a C, the central sun, the various suns, to get a bigger feel and bigger picture of the entire so-called manifestation. And we also understood or touched upon the unity of manifested and the unmanifested, the connected nature of the whole. And we also touched upon the Maya concept, that how everything is Maya, and little bit more we will see today. And finally, we started looking into how to practice this yoga. And on this theme or on this point, we will further elaborate in today's discussion. Now, before we proceed, there are these important shlokas, chapter 9, Bhagavad Gita, shloka 4 and 5. 4 says, this entire cosmic manifestation is pervaded by me in my unmanifest form. All living beings dwell in me, but I do not dwell in them. So, this is something which we need to contemplate. This entire cosmic manifestation is pervaded by me. So it goes back to the idea, if we think little further, about the absolute abstract space, the unthinkable, the uh, everlasting is referred to from this perspective. In that, it becomes a playground of cosmoses, universes, galaxies, systems, and so on and so forth. And the next 9.5 states, nor do the created things dwell in me. Behold my divine yoga. I am the sustainer, the originator of the created things, but myself is not contained in the created things. So, if in the grand scheme of this so called manifestation, that one being, which is the ultimate truth, is still apart, and some mysterious way of manifestation is happening where that one being is has so-called projected, or we may think created, but still different and apart and still sustaining. Now here is a very interesting shloka. It says Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudichyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. So that says in English that this is full, that is full, this is also full. This fullness came from that fullness. Though this fullness came from that fullness remains forever full, since it is the non-dual absolute reality. So, even though our so-called world or manifested cosmos is a part of that, but still we need to understand that it is not forever, but that is forever. And from that, this comes and goes. So, this divine form, which we may try to comprehend in our mind and contemplate and meditate on it, is also we need to think from this perspective. Now, from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, shloka 3, 4, 5, 6, I have condensed here, which are important for a consideration. Lord Krishna says, among thousands of mortals, a single one perhaps strives for perfection. And among those so striving, perhaps a single one knows me as I am. So, we may replace thousand by maybe billions as of today's world situation. So among billions of models, maybe a single one may think of trying to know the truth. And out of such thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe one single person may get to know Lord Krishna as in his true form, or is in divine form, or come to know the reality about the whole scheme of things. Earth, water, air, fire, akasha, manasa, buddhi, ahamkara is the eightfold division of my name. Here, Lord Krishna is representing the apara prakriti, which is the lower form of prakriti. And then he goes on to say, it is inferior. Know that my superior nature, that is para prakriti, is different and is the knower. By it, the universe is sustained. Learn that the whole of creation springs from this too as from a womb. So we can think of Prakriti as sevenfold. But Prakriti also, here Lord Krishna is hinting that there is a lower aspect and a higher aspect. And the higher aspect is from where everything is coming. And we will try to understand what is meant by this. Further, he says in 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and I think all of us are aware of this, I established the whole universe with a single portion of myself and yet remain separate or apart. So these are seed ideas which are given in the Bhagavad Gita, which we need to contemplate upon, and they will lead us to the um, core essence of the reality. Then further he says in the 6th sloka of 7th chapter, I am the cause, I am the production and the dissolution of the whole universe. There is none superior to me. And finally, all things hang on me as precious gems upon a string. So just imagine the substratum, and in Sanskrit you say the adhisthana or the basis. If you remove the string, all the gems or all the pearls will fall down. So this is how the trivial temporary nature of this whole so-called manifestation is. If you think the Milky Way is the galaxies, whatever you think, it's so trivial. And then we see that in SD, there is this interesting statement about Parabrahman, where it says Parabrahman cannot be known except through the luminous point, the Logos, which knows not Parabrahman but only Mula Prakriti. And we saw this in our previous study, and we'll just quickly touch upon this because it's an important point. This is a potential mathematical line we saw in the absolute abstract space. And then we try to understand that we have the unmanifested logos, and then the manifested logos comes in. And then we have the so unmanifested, manifesting, and the manifested comes in. Third logos, Mahat or Brahma. But each of these logos is also sevenfold. So there is a progression. So we are seeing these three different circles or dots, but in between there are transitions. So the first to the yellow one, the second logos manifesting, there are 7 transitions, and the second to the third, there's again 7 transitions. And all, hence all are sevenfold. So here we see that Parabrahman is actually beyond this mathematical line. And we cannot know Parabrahman except through this luminous point, which is the second manifesting logos, which expresses itself as the third manifested logos. But even from that logos perspective, it knows not Parabrahman. It's only the Mula Prakriti in its highest aspect is what we can know. Because if you see our system, it starts, the Rupa worlds start from the manifested logos itself. And then this particular point we have seen is Prabhava Pyaya, the yellow point, the manifesting logos, which also is the starting point of the system, from where the definition stated is the place, or rather the plane, whence emerges the origination, and into which goes the resolution at the end of the night or day of the Brahma. But in order to know that, in order to know the reality, it's even beyond. So maximum we can reach at the level of the highest Mula Prakriti. That is the manifesting logos, or second perhaps. Or even it is said that the highest dhyanis cannot go beyond that. So, interesting thing to note is that matter is dual in religious metaphysics and septenary in esoteric teachings, like everything else in the universe. As Mula Prakriti, it is undifferentiated and eternal. So matter is eternal. As Vyakta, that means manifested, it becomes differentiated and conditioned. So matter becomes differentiated and conditioned, but it is always there. And then further, we see that Parabrahman appears to it as Mula Prakriti. Of course, this Mula Prakriti is material to it, as any material object. So from the perspective of Parabrahman, even Mula Prakriti is material, so that if Parabrahman is the spirit, then Mula Prakriti becomes matter from that plane or level of consciousness. And further, SD says that Parabrahman is an unconditioned and absolute reality, and Mula Prakriti is sort of a veil. But also we see in the Secret Doctrine that Parabrahman is an aspect of the absolute abstract space, or even because even absolute abstract space and absolute abstract motion is an aspect of that beingness of that. So you see the levels of complexity and the levels of reality. But interesting part is matter is always there, and matter is Prakriti. But we see Prakriti is eternal. That means even if Mahapralaya comes, Prakriti is there. So we saw last time that many universes are coming and going, a lot of manvantras happening during the day of Brahma. And we also saw that there is a rest period at the end of the Mahamanvantra. But when everything dissolves back, everything goes back to that point of origination, the Prabhava Pyaya, still we see that Prakriti is always there. Even though we may call it nothingness as per the initial state of the system, but still Prakriti is always there. So we may ask this question that is there creation? Because Prakriti is not being created. Prakriti is always there. Something happens and Prakriti gets differentiated and the whole universe comes. The so-called divine form is seen, and there is, we say there is manifestation, but is anything getting created? So these sublime mysteries of what is called today so unphilosophically creation were divulged to the elect of the fifth root race, progeny of the preceding fourth. And this is what Lord Krishna also passes on in his teaching in the Bhagavad Gita, wherein the truth given is that actually there is no creation. And as per Secret Doctrine, we have this quote: the first lesson taught in esoteric philosophy is that the incognizable cause does not put forth evolution, whether consciously or unconsciously, but only exhibits periodically different aspects of itself to the perception of the finite minds. And this is a very important seed thought. We should further and further, again and again, contemplate on it. So, what it means is that it's like a mirage, it's like a projection, it's like a reflection. So, we don't have proper words in English to describe it, but all these words, projection, reflection, mirage, exhibiting periodically, we can contemplate on this, is that there is some absolutely abstract space in which periodically, because of some reason, the karana, unknown cause, suddenly this periodically, this whole manifested universe expresses itself, but it's just an expression, a projection, or a reflection. And then Brahma does not put forth evolution itself or create, but only exhibits various aspects of itself, one of which is Prakriti, an aspect of Pradhana. So even before Prakriti, we have Pradhana. Pradhana in Sanskrit means the one that comes first. So then we see true esoteric philosophy, however, speaks neither of creation nor of evolution in the sense the exoteric religions do. All these personified powers are not evolutions from one another, but so many aspects of the one and sole manifestation of the absolute all. Again, aspects, reflection, exhibition, projection, and so on and so forth. Everything is relative in this universe. Everything is an illusion. So the entire page 200 diagram is actually Mahamaya, and everything is Maya. And how do we understand this? So the entire universe is a product of Maya. As long as we accept the chains of cause and effect, we remain bound to Maya's plane of causality. The path to liberation lies in recognizing that these causes and effects are merely superimpositions or adhyasa in Sanskrit upon Brahman, the third logos. Every illusion requires a substratum. Without such a ground, no illusion can occur. For example, in the twilight, a tree stump might be mistaken for a ghostly figure. As long as this illusion persists, the ghost is real to the observer because everything is happening in the mind of the observer. However, when a light dispels the error, only the stump remains. In the same way, the world perceived by our senses seems real until the supreme reality is known, which is the truth, absolute truth about the whole so-called manifested universe. When that knowledge dawns, the illusion of the sensory world vanishes, revealing only the Atman, the Brahman, the sole ontological reality. Sensory experience is impermanent. Only Brahman truly exists. Brahman lies beyond the reach of the mind and is known only through direct intuition in its pure unity. So, even if we try to explain in words, if we discuss, brainstorm, we will not be able to comprehend the reality of Brahman or the Atman. Each one of us has to meditate on this, and only then each one with their own efforts will get the answer to the truth. It transcends time, space, and causality, yet underlies all of the manifestation as its support and substratum. The unmoving screen upon which the moving film of superimpositions is projected. So it's like a movie. So the screen, the TV screen or the screen at the cinema hall does not get impacted if there is a bomb blast or whatever happens in the movie. So that's always there. But the movies keep changing. So similarly, we can think of our so-called projected universe and our lives and everything. Hence, we need to take the witness position. So how we may further visualize the divine form, the question may arise. So the first approach is interestingly given by Blavatsky in Secret Doctrine. She says, close your eyes and from your own consciousness of perception, try and think outward to the extremist limits in every direction. You will find that equal lines or rays of perception extend out evenly in all directions, so that the outmost effort of perception will terminate in the vault of a sphere. The limitation of this sphere will, of necessity, be a great circle, and the direct rays of thought in any and every direction must be right line radii of the circle. This, then, must be, humanly speaking, the extremist all embracing conception of the Ein Sof or Parabrahman manifest, which formulates itself as a geometrical figure, that is, of a circle, with its elements of curved circumference and right line diameter divided into radii. Hence, a geometrical shape, that is sphere in this case, is the first recognizable means of connection between Eins of Parabrahm and the intelligence of man. So Blavatsky has given us a direct formula, a practical approach, wherein all we have to do is, we being our center, project our consciousness all 360 degrees everywhere, up, down, left, right, in all directions, in all four directions, and the zenith and the nadar everywhere, then we can reach this spherical uh, uh, sphere or a vault of sphere around us, which is the means of connecting us or our mind with Parabrahma. So a very clear, direct instruction is provided. Second approach, and this is as per the esoteric writings of T. Subbarao, he has given hint that the material universe is actually represented by a dodecahedron, and each side maps to a zodiac sign. So dodecahedron means you have 12 sides. Each side is actually a pentagonal shape, and each side is actually connected or linked or maps or reflects the zodiac signs. And then he says the astral universe is represented by a icosahedron. And then he says that we have the octahedron, the eight-sided, the cube, the tetrahedron, the four-sided, in that order, and all the five platonic solids are actually enclosed in a sphere within a center. So HPB gave this hint that think of that sphere with that center. You are that center. And then you can connect with the Parabrahman. And then here T. Sabura provides a further hint that in that sphere, all this is also happening. But how do we conceptualize this? So we have this small animation here. Let's hope this helps us understand. So this was the dodecahedron, then icosahedron. This is a cube. And then further we have the tetrahedron, the icosahedron, and so on and so forth. And just imagine all this is actually having a center. And with that center, all this is actually enclosed in a sphere. So in this animation, we were not able to get the sphere enclosing it. But imagine there is a sphere with a center, and all this is happening inside that. So there are 7 planes of the cosmos, 7 planes of the microcosm, human being also. And all of these geometrical figures or platonic solids are representing the macrocosm and the microcosm both. So, and we have a sphere around it, and you are at the center of it. So this is another method of visualization and contemplation. But how do we get the divine vision? We don't have the divine vision. So how do we actually see the actual truth? And how do we know the reality? And in chapter 11, it's mentioned that, O Arjuna, only through one-pointed devotion am I of this form able to be known and seen in reality, and also to be entered into, O destroyer of foes. So here Lord Krishna is hinting again and again that yes, you are on this path, but there has to be one-pointed devotion, which is very important. So everything, your heart and mind and your soul, everything needs to be 100% devoted on me. And then he says, O son of Pandu, he who works for me, accepts me as the supreme goal, is devoted to me, is devoid of attachment, is free from enmity towards all beings, he attains me. So the hint is given on highest form of vairagya, and to know the reality that this is neither you or me, there is one Atman. Only then you will be free from enmity towards all beings. And there will be highest form of compassion and charity naturally arising in your hearts. So complete one-pointed devotion to the exclusion of everything else. But how do we achieve this attunement, or how do we harmonize, synchronize ourselves with that? And in this case, we have this interesting shloka wherein it mentions, thou hast seen this form of mind which is difficult to be perceived and which even the gods are always anxious to behold. But I am not to be seen, even as I have shown myself to thee, by study of the Vedas, nor by mortifications, nor almsgiving, nor sacrifices. Then he says, I am to be approached and seen and known in truth by means of that devotion which has me alone as the object. So goes back to the previous shlokas again. He whose actions are for me alone, who estimate me the supreme goal, who is my servant only, without attachment to the results of action and free from enmity. So the same thing is reflected again. And then we see that what we have to do in this journey, we have to perform, as we saw, the whole of Bhagavad Gita is not one particular form of devotion or one particular form of yoga. All these different yogas and forms of devotion work in parallel. So we have to perform the Raja Yoga plus Jnana Yoga, as we have already seen. And this needs to be propelled by Bhakti Yoga. And all of this has to be based on the foundation of the Karma Yoga. So when Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raj Yoga, Jnana Yoga are worked or performed together, then we can think of attuning ourselves to the highest possible truth. But this attunement needs to happen on seven planes of consciousness, seven chords, seven paramitas, and so on and so forth. Then we see that these seven planes of cosmos corresponds to seven states of consciousness in man. But HPV says that it remains with him to attune the three higher states, arupa in man, in himself, to the three higher planes in cosmos. But before he can attempt to attune, he must awaken the three seeds to life and activity. And how many are capable of bringing themselves to even a superficial comprehension of Atma Vidya? So we may ask, again, HPB is providing us a very practical instruction here. But what are these three seeds of life and activity? And how to awaken these three seeds of activity? So in Voice of Silence, we see that it says, let not thy heaven bond merged in the sea of Maya break from the universal parent soul. So we saw that everything is Maya and we are actually immersed in the sea of Maya. And what HPB is saying, let not thy heaven bond merged in sea of Maya break from the universal parent, but let the fiery power retire into the innermost or inmost chamber, the chamber of the heart and the abode of the world's mother. And then from the heart that power shall rise into the sixth, the middle region, the place between thy eyes. When it becomes the breath of the one soul, the voice which filleth all, the Master's voice. It is only then thou canst become a walker of the sky who treads the winds above the waves, whose steps touches not the waters. So last time we touched upon the idea of how the heart center needs to get activated. But we also saw that all these centers, the new age movement and all the new information which millions of people are following is actually misleading and wrong. What Theosophy teaches us and guides us is that we should not be anyway thinking of these chakras or activating these centers by living the life, by following the ethical moral life, living, abiding with the teachings, and also in harmony with the teachings when we conduct our life, uh, perform our duty, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, jnana yoga, then automatically all these three centers get activated. But what are these three centers if we were to just know for our knowledge sake? So there are two possible approaches. The first one could be the heart and then goes to the throat and then goes to the between the eyes. And the second approach on the right is your throat, where the heart is not considered, and it goes middle portion of your eyes, which could be the pineal gland, and goes to the third, that is above the head. So we don't know exactly what is these three centers because it's not exactly mentioned. But we don't need to worry about it because what is clearly mentioned is that we don't need to worry about the correct approach. But what is mentioned, which is very important, is that lead the life necessary for the acquisition of such knowledge and powers, which means that lead a ethical, moral, righteous life, lead the life as per the guidance provided in Bhagavad Gita. Perform your duty, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, and Raja Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, and wisdom will come to you naturally. Whenever you are able to attune your consciousness to any of the seven chords, not all, any of the seven chords of universal consciousness, these chords that run along the sounding board of cosmos, vibrating from one eternity to another. So automatically, when we lead the right life, right thought, right speech, right action, vairagya, right perception of reality of things, what is self, what is non-self, performance of duty every moment, offering all our actions, thought, speech, and action to the higher self, being the acting as the self of all, and from that center, having compassion, and all this everything what we have discussed, bringing it all together practically in our life, then automatically we'll start leading the life necessary. Then automatically, when we tune to one of the chords, and we don't even need to worry when that happens, we just perform our duty because as per Karma Yoga, we are not worried or bothered about the results. We just keep performing our duty life after life. And whenever we become ready, or whenever the vessel or the apparatus or the vehicle becomes ready, then automatically we'll have the knowledge what needs to be done. But there is another important thing going back to chapter 2 or our initial first meeting which we had. We realized that the next moment is death or breath. We have no idea. So it again, all these teachings we can connect to that at the time of death, and at the time of death, the highest possible what we can achieve in our life is also mentioned. That the Jiva soul goes with Shukshma Sharira from the heart of the body to Brahmanandra in the crown of the head, traversing Shushumna, a nerve connecting the heart with the Brahmanandra. The jiva breaks through the Brahmanandra, which is the top of the head, and goes to the region of sun, the Surya Mandala, through the solar rays. Then it goes through a dark spot in the sun to the Parampada. Param means the ultimate pada is the feet. The jiva is directed on its way by the supreme wisdom acquired by the yoga. This yoga is what is taught in the Bhagavad Gita. The jiva thus proceeds to the parampada by the aid of ativahikas, the bearers in transit. These are again like the lipikas, the high beings who are performing their duty, known by the names of Archihas, Adityas, Prajapatis, etc. And then the Archis here mentioned are certain pure souls, etc. So this is the highest what we can achieve. And once you have achieved this, as per the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, while you are in this body itself, even before you actually get into a death state, you would become a Jivan Mukta, that is liberated soul while in the body. So that's the whole essence or the zenith or the final state of this yoga of Bhagavad Gita. And once the three seats are activated, then attunement can be performed. Attunement between what? Between the macrocosm and the microcosm. Because we, the microcosm, are a copy of the macrocosm. The only problem we are facing, or the impediment we are facing, is that we are not harmonized, synchronized, attuned with the macrocosm. And once these seats are activated, we are able to attune ourselves, harmonize ourselves. And we have the voice of silence, which says that attune the heart and mind to the great mind and heart of all mankind. So this act happens completely, practically achieved when we have activated those three states. How do we activate those three states? We have already seen that we need to live that life with all these teachings, bringing it practically. And then we are able to achieve this. And then finally, all the sounds, all the seven portals, all the paramitas are aligned to that frequency in us. And then we have the six forces or powers of nature, six planes or principles, and in fact, all the six or all aspects of the six are synthesized by the seventh or the central point in the star. In its unity, primordial light is the seventh, that is Devi Prakriti, the light of the unmanifested Logos. Hence, we finally attune ourselves with the whole and become one with the all. So, friends, we will stop here and we can take some questions and discuss.